What's good with y'all, man? It's your boy David. We are back with another reaction video. Today we are reacting to the greatest depiction of war in fiction. Now, as you know, it's a lot of stories, and a lot of stories tell a lot of stories about war, right? Some of the greatest in human history have been the Iliad, I think, the Mahabharata, and others. There's a lot of stories that tell a lot of that have a lot of war arcs within them. And you know, because human beings, man, even though we say we hate war, we love to talk about it and we love to read about it. You know what I'm saying? So let's see, man, what fictional universe has the greatest war arc ever? With that being said, make sure y'all like and subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Let's get straight to it.
War arcs are one of the coolest tropes in fiction. It's the moment the story reaches its peak. All the characters we've met along the journey are present and ready to use everything they have in an epic battle that will conclude the entire series. Jujutsu Kaisen's war arc is 50.
Or not conclude the entire series, but it is definitely an apex climax point within the story. Like with Naruto, anime specifically with Naruto. You know, the war arc was fucking crazy. Even though they've had multiple wars, but the war arc was fucking crazy, low-key. Even though it was written kind of ass at the end, it was still fucking fire. You know what I'm saying?
Chapters long. One Piece's war arc is
and One Piece's war arc as well. Even though One Piece is about to have another war arc, you know, with Emu and stuff coming into the picture. Now we know what Emu actually looks like. So that's gonna be a crazy ass war arc. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be way more devastating than Marineford. Somebody's going to die for sure, right? Ace died in this one, and that shit hurt. So, you know, you just keep your eyes peeled, man. One Piece, somebody is going to die in that war arc very soon. No cap.
108 chapters long. Naruto's war arc is 185 chapters long. But what happens when a war arc lasts for over 870 chapters? What happens when a manga author dedicates their life to telling the story of the Warring States period? A centuries-long era of a relentless war where hundreds of thousands of soldiers fought for dominance in some of history's most brutal battles.
Are you sure it was hundreds of thousands? It felt more like millions. Because I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to China and wars, bro, tens of millions of people die in little conflicts in those Warring States periods in China, bro. It was fucking crazy. Like, it'll be like the world war had a death count of a million people, right? Which is fucking insane. A small dispute in China killed 20 million people. Those memes are so funny but so fucked up. It's crazy.
What happens is Kingdom, a manga that's been ongoing for over 20 years and the greatest depiction of war in all of fiction. The story begins with Shin, a kid with no family who lives in a tiny village alongside his closest friend, Hugh. Together, they train every single day, both of them sharing the same goal, to rise from nothing and become great generals. One day, Hugh is suddenly taken away to serve at the royal palace. Shin is left behind, believing that this is Hugh's first step toward achieving their shared dream. But not long after, he returns, fatally wounded. With his last breath, he tells Shin to go to a specific location. When Shin arrives, he encounters a boy who looks exactly like Hugh. This is Sei, the king of Qin, one of the 7 states fighting for dominance in China. It's revealed that Hugh was used as a body double during a palace coup, saving Sei by sacrificing himself. At first, Shin is furious. To him, Sei is the reason his best friend is gone. But as he learns about what's actually going on, he realizes that this boy is not just a king running for his life. He's someone carrying an enormous ambition. In a world where several states have been locked in endless war for hundreds of years, Sei believes that the only way to end the suffering is to bring everything under a single rule. Not through negotiations or alliances, but by conquering every rival state and creating one nation. His goal is to unify all of China. And from that moment,
which is such a lofty ideal, you gotta think, like, China is fucking huge. China is fucking huge. Could you imagine trying to conquer that big ass damn near continent? What the fuck? That's crazy.
Shin and Sei form an unlikely alliance that will change the course of history. Think about how war is usually portrayed in anime and manga.
The story basically climaxes and they make it look cool as fuck, but war is actually terrible. By the way, don't get it fucked up. War is ugly. Actual war is ugly. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Usually spends months building up to it. The hype rises, and then finally you get a big war that ends the story. Classic. There are absolutely series like Naruto where the world is in a constant state of conflict, but even then you get one big war that concludes the story. But Kingdom can't really do that because it's a story that's strongly inspired by real life events. The Warring States period was 500 years of continuous fighting.
Damn! What? You know, it's funny to put in perspective. Like, the World War was like a couple months, I think, to a year. Like both of them, right? Could you imagine fighting for 500 years straight? That's crazy as fuck. That don't even make no sense, bruh.
States were constantly invading each other, trying to gain even the slightest bit of territory. Every single character in this story was born into war and is going to die inside of it. So from the very first chapter, war is basically everywhere. Shin and Sei's quest is a journey that unfolds over years and years, back-to-back campaigns and dozens of exhausting battles, one after another. The Battle of Bayou arc is a 66-chapter war. The Coalition invasion arc is a 100-chapter war. The Western Zhao invasion is a 147-chapter war. Just to put this in perspective, this is longer than most manga out there. I mean, even a shorter campaign like Kokuyu still runs 47 chapters. And once you've read some of Kingdom and you get past the sheer number of battles, something even more striking starts to sink in. Every single battle is operating at a level that most other series would save for their final arc. Let me introduce the Coalition War.
How? What the fuck? Bro, that's actually that. How are they making these battles that are basically damn near like skirmishes on the same level as like a Naruto like last final war arc or like a My Hero final war arc? How are they doing that?
The premise of this event is already kind of terrifying. Basically, you've got multiple powerful states that under literally any other circumstances would be at each other's throats. But this time, instead of actually fighting against each other, they decide to temporarily create an alliance in order to erase kin off the map. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of soldiers coming from multiple directions, split into separate armies hitting different fronts at the same time. The first one is Kankaku Pass, the central part of the entire war and the single most important piece Kin has to hold on to. It's this massive wall that acts as the front door to the capital, which means that the enemy just keeps attacking. They use soldiers, ladders, towers, wave after wave after wave, each one designed to find any possible way to get through that wall.
What the fuck? That is crazy. God damn, y'all see, y'all, bro. Look at the sheer bodies. There's so many bodies in the field. Golly.
While all of that is happening, Kin also has to deal with a southern battlefield at the exact same time. A constantly shifting fight with the enemies going as far as using elephants. There's also the cliff.
Yeah, them niggas took a trip to India and got elephants. What the fuck?
Where enemies are trying to win in order to walk around Kankaku Pass and open it. Kin's fate is being decided in every direction simultaneously, each front with its own timeline and its own pressure. As a reader, you are basically being forced to understand this whole thing as a network. Every front is connected to every other front. Every decision ripples outward, and no single person, no matter how gifted, has full control over what's happening. And on top of that, the war can basically switch everything up at any given moment. There's a point where Kin starts making kind of a comeback. Against all odds, these boys are clawing their way back. But the coalition commander sees this happening, immediately improvises a small army, slips through the front lines entirely, and starts marching directly toward Kin's capital with one singular objective: to slay the king while the main war is still going on. This whole thing just transformed into a completely different conflict mid-war, where Issei and his armies have to somehow defend a capital that is not built for fighting at all, while also protecting every small city standing between them and the enemy. The armies are stretched so thin it's genuinely painful to watch. Do you send reinforcements here and leave that front exposed? Do you hold this position and let this city fall? Every single call has a cost, and there is no good option on the table. Only, the least catastrophic one. There is a constant awareness that even if Kin...
Well, at that point, you gotta pick the least catastrophic one. I mean, shit, if I'm a general, and it's either hold this town for the resources and to protect the people, or hold this town because it has a very strong, like, advantage, like we can hit the enemy from the side. I might want to hit the enemy from the side and forget that town. I'm not gonna lie, bro.
Wins in one area, lose.
Because at the end of the day, like, it just depends on what's the best move to make. Because somebody's gonna get fucked regardless. Somebody's getting cooked. You know what I'm saying? So how can we cook less people,
In another could render that victory meaningless. Let alone the fact that chapter after chapter the author
and the mangaka has to draw this shit. Oh my god, that's fucking crazy. That's nuts.
Draws entire pages filled with thousands of soldiers. I mean, we are talking entire panels of armies for nearly 20 years of weekly serialization. Every single one of them with detailed armors, weapons, formations. Throughout this entire thing, Kingdom is showing you the full weight of what a prolonged, exhausting, grinding conflict actually feels like. But the thing that's actually kind of crazy to me is that with all this chaos, all these moving pieces, everything that's going on, Kingdom somehow never loses you. Listen, the actual mechanics of these wars are genuinely mega complicated. Like, trust me, there is real military stuff being applied to a manga, but the story is constantly giving you the tools, maps, formations, tactical breakdowns, clear explanations of what each army is actually trying to accomplish. So even when you're dealing with this massive multi-front conflict, you are in it. Before the author wrote a single chapter, this man already understood that if you are going to depict war during this period in any meaningful way, there is no shortcut. I mean, let's be honest, there is no way to actually capture what is going on while keeping it small. It has to feel huge and epic. China has inspired some of the greatest stories in fiction. We are talking Kingdom, Black Myth Wukong, Where Winds Meet, Kung Fu Panda, and that same inspiration carries into today's sponsor, Reverse 1990 by So okay, absolutely no big Wuja. Awesome. This delivers the background to deliver stories usually. So to still get almost over. The first thing most people would see in Kingdom are the massive armies clashing on an almost overwhelming scale.
One of the main things like about the story is like, I'm just thinking, how much money does it cost to field armies like this? It probably costs hundreds of millions of whatever currency they have that is equivalent to $1 to do this. Like, these battles must look ridiculous, bro. Like, god damn, this don't even make no sense.
The truth is, these soldiers are not the real driving force behind the battles. The most important figures in any of these conflicts, the ones that actually determine the outcome of the wars and the people making all of this exciting, are the generals. Every great general in the story has a war philosophy. It's kind of like a whole way of thinking about fighting and a specific idea of exactly how to approach every battle. You have generals like Osen, who basically treat war like it's a math problem and never take any unnecessary risks. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, there are generals like Mobu, who do not care about your strategy and basically just run directly at you. And then there are generals like Kanki, who do not operate by any of these rules, and way more. The thing that makes this special is seeing what happens when two generals with completely different styles clash in a war. One of the clearest examples of this is actually a battle that goes all the way back to, early parts of the story. Kin is pushing into enemy territory, and the Dakan Plains become the stage for a large battle where two armies collide. On one side, you have Gokei, fighting for Wei, a man who believes that war is a system, something that can...
Bro, this nigga look crazy than a bitch. He look crazy as fuck. He like, he'll take a nigga life. Oh my god, look at his fucking eyeballs. This nigga got a goddamn 6 in his eye. That's crazy.
Be understood, mapped out, predicted, and ultimately controlled with tactics. On the other side, you have Duke Yu fighting for Kin. And Duke Yu is basically the embodiment of not caring. His way of war is to hunt for something called the fire. One specific moment where momentum builds up into something that cannot be stopped. Kin is initially expecting a full siege, They have like a whole plan mapped out. Attack a fortress, break it down, and bim bam boom. But then they discover that Wei has marched out with 150,000 soldiers instead. Gokey is forcing the confrontation on open ground. Qin's entire game plan is obsolete before the battle even starts. But Yukyu, this absolute monster, takes one look at the situation and immediately clocks what Gokey was actually doing. His response is to immediately throw out the whole siege plan and commit to a full-scale open field battle. And at first, I'm not gonna lie, they're getting destroyed. The enemy is sitting there watching them like they have absolutely no idea what they're doing. It is genuinely a massacre. Wei starts sending his chariots, and these things are a nightmare. And yet, Yukyu's orders are to stay there and fight.
I don't even got nothing to say. I'm just so goddamn enamored by what the fuck this nigga's talking about. Like, so what do they do next? Do they like, does this blazing fire get built and then do they beat the niggas or like what? Like what the fuck goes on? Do they just get fucking killed? Like I don't know, bro.
At this point, even the higher-ups of his own army are there looking at each other like, is he serious? Because on paper, against a general this organized, standing your ground sounds like the worst idea ever. I mean, yeah, nobody can make sense of it. It's kind of like, why would you not subscribe to my channel? It doesn't make sense. But while everybody else is looking at...
We always love, it's one thing I love about YouTube, man. We always love the harmless, shameless self-promotion. You gotta do it. So make sure you subscribe too, nigga. If you're this far down, subscribe, nigga.
The full picture and seeing a disaster, Yukyu is locked in, searching for one thing. One decisive point buried somewhere inside all this chaos, and he finds it. In the beginning, he charges into the fight, and it looks insane. Nobody around him can see what he sees. Until, very slowly, that one move starts a chain reaction. One thing leads to another, and before you know it, that decision that looked like a man losing his freaking mind is the exact reason Yukyu wins the entire thing. His instinct was right the whole...
So he kind of won off bullshit and luck, is if that's what you're saying. Which I mean, you know, I'll let it slide because things can happen on a battlefield. You know, you might fuck around and win off based off pure luck and speculation, and that's okay. It's perfectly fine.
He found the fire. What you're seeing in real time is basically Gokey trying to read Yukyu and find the logic counter. The problem is that his movements do not follow a visible structure that can be mapped out and anticipated. And that is exactly where Gokey's entire war system breaks. The beauty of this confrontation is that neither of these generals can really understand each other's tactics, and neither of them is fundamentally right or wrong. The difference between the winner and the loser is impossible to predict. New information keeps coming in. The situation...
It's just plot. They lose and win based off plot, then I guess, because it just depends on... You could have the tactical advantage, because the crazy looking nigga had that shit. He had that nigga dead to rights, right? But he lost because this other crazy looking nigga just had God on his side, I guess.
The situation keeps shifting. The constraints keep changing, and both of these men are processing all of that through completely different frameworks simultaneously. The reason Kingdom can keep pumping war after war after war without it ever getting old is because every major general in this story is different. And all of this ultimately results in some of the most brain-breaking strategic fiction I have ever had the pleasure to come across. So sure, the first thing you see are the huge armies that genuinely make some of the most mind-blowing panels in manga history. But you can immediately tell that the author puts particular effort into making the generals stand out as the most important piece of the puzzle. He draws them as these massive figures that tower over everyone else purely based on their aura. And he even makes their weapons bend under their sheer freaking strength. Listen, I know that so far I've mostly been hyping up Kingdom and the awesome ways in which it portrays war, but weirdly enough, I think that when all of that is done, when the battle wraps up and the big climactic moment hits, when war is basically over, that is when Kingdom is at its strongest. Because
How so?
when you strip away all the epic stuff, you're reminded that every single unit on that...
Bro, this animation is fucking beautiful. Hold on, run that back by me one more time. Hold on.
You strip away all the epic stuff, you're reminded that every...
That's gorgeous. Look at I love the pastel-y, oily feeling of the painting. This is fucking it's so good I call it a painting. I'm talking about the oily pastel feeling of the animation, bro. This is nice.
unit on
Damn, them boys clean. Them niggas swagged up.
that map is just a person.
Shit.
In anime and manga, there's usually a pretty clear split in how antagonists are handled. Some series just go full villain mode. These are the bad guys, and you're supposed to hate them. For example, One Piece does this, and it works great for what it is. But then, there are also series...
It's funny, One Piece does that, but also gives you, like, reasons why the villain does, why they do what they do. Whether it's a selfish reason or a good reason, at the end of the day, they're still a villain, and you have to sort of kind of root against them. You know what I'm saying? But still, it still works, though, for real. It's very compelling storytelling. Oda is making basically the Odyssey of our generation in Japan. Okay.
where the people on the other side...
It's gonna get to a point they're gonna start teaching about One Piece. Oh God.
aren't really villains at all. They're just people shaped by where they came from and what they've been through. A good example that does this is Naruto. And Kingdom most definitely...
Especially Pain. Oh my God, bro. When Pain was fighting Naruto and Naruto was mad, he was like, "You killed my village and my people." And then Pain was like, "What about my village? My people?" And at that moment, I was like, "Naruto, you sound like a bitch compared to this nigga, bro." You crying, screaming, moaning and shit. But this nigga, he's honest. He's like, "Yeah, I killed your niggas. Cause y'all killed my niggas. What about my family? Right? My family. Y'all didn't fight y'all war." Cause in the story, they didn't fight the great wars in their own villages. They fought the great wars in the neighboring villages. You know what I'm saying? So the Leaf fought a lot of conflicts inside the Hidden Rain. Right? And so he was like, "Y'all couldn't fight your wars there. You fought your wars in my home and killed my people and my family." That, like, at that moment, I was like, "Naruto, you sound like such a bitch. You're crying for nothing, bro." I'm not gonna lie. I mean, not for nothing, because the nigga did kill his sensei and his friends and shit, but still, like, at the end of the day, like, it is what it is, bro. He was gonna get that get back regardless. I mean, look at his eyes; they're purple. He has a Rinnegan. You thought he was gonna just sit back and be peaceful with a Rinnegan? Be for real, bro.
Falls into that second category, but it goes even further. The people the kin are fighting against are almost never framed as evil. You often get their backstories and their motivations, and even the reasons they're standing on that side of the battlefield. War kind of stops being good guys versus bad guys and starts feeling like a collision between people who, in a different life, probably wouldn't even be enemies at all. The story completely refuses to let the side you're rooting for get off the hook. The kin people are the guys you focus on, sure, but they are far from the good guys. Kanki, one of Kin's generals, is responsible for some of the most brutal acts in the entire story. Listen, you're gonna have to trust me on this because I genuinely cannot show you most of the stuff he does, but he is easily one of the most vile characters in all of anime and manga. I mean, like, he is up there with the worst ones you can think of.
No, ain't nobody up there with Griffin. Griffin is a fucking piece of shit. I hate that nigga. I'll hate him for the rest of. I don't hate fictional characters because they're not real, but I hate that nigga like he's a real person. I don't fuck with that nigga at all, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
The story does not look away from that. It doesn't frame what he does as some distant evil happening outside the main story. His acts are treated as some of the worst atrocities of the entire era. And do you know what makes this genuinely unbearable? It's the fact he wins. His campaigns work. He is one of the most talented generals in the entire series. And both of these things are true at the same time. He's honestly one of my favorite characters in the entire show because of how uncomfortable he makes you feel. There's this beautiful scene that I personally love where Shin is completely disgusted and furious at what Kanki does while also having to admit that he's a genius. He is technically on the side you're supposed to be rooting for, but you almost find yourself rooting for his enemies because of the sheer amount of psychological terror he leaves behind everywhere he goes. Even Sei, the king whose dream of unifying China for peace, the man carrying the entire plot of the story, openly admits that his goal is only going to happen through enormous suffering, years of war, with endless bloodshed and sacrifice. There's a moment during one of the wars where he actually has no choice but to ask ordinary citizens to fight alongside him against a trained army. On one level, it is genuinely moving. This is a king who was born into the worst circumstances ever, who spent his childhood being humiliated. And here he is, standing in front of the people in his kingdom, asking them to believe in him. But on the other level, it is one of the most...
It's like they're gonna die. They're gonna die so fucking bad because they're just regular people fighting a trained army. Like, they're gonna get fucking slaughtered. There's gonna be a bloodbath. Their streets are gonna be red as fuck.
disturbing things in the entire series, because what's actually happening is that regular people are being converted into a military resource. The story never lets you get comfortable cheering for one side as the good guys. It keeps pushing you into a much messier reality. It shows you that...
And at the end of the day, I'm thinking to myself, would he do the same for them? Would he put his life on the line like that for them? You know what I'm saying? I don't know, bro. I don't know.
One involved in war is responsible for the brutality it causes. And the line between hero and villain is basically kind of meaningless. Kingdom never lets you forget that. Before the author wrote a single page, he went deep into historical records, which means that he knows exactly what Sei became in real life. He knows that the man this story is asking you to love and root for is remembered by history as one of the most cruel rulers to ever live. He knows that the dynasty Sei builds, the one that literally builds the foundations for the China we know today, collapses in barely only a few years under the weight of its own people's hatred. He knows all of that, and he chooses to write it anyway, because this contradiction is the truth. Because a story about the single greatest and most costly act of ambition in ancient Chinese history should feel like both things at once. The dream and everything it cost to chase it. This is the honest price of war.
That shit crazy, man. But with that being said, man, make sure y'all like and subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. And I ain't gonna lie, this is like, I tried to get into it, but I couldn't really get into it because I've been so busy with shit. But man, I like the first episodes I watched. You know what I'm saying? But with that being said, make sure you like and subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm gonna catch y'all next one, man. We out.